She spent her entire career helping people heal. Thousands of patients. Millions of viewers worldwide. A doctor who made the world feel seen. And then in November 2025, on a filming set in the middle of a regular working day, the woman who healed everyone else suddenly couldn't save herself. Not every child grows up knowing exactly what they are meant to do with their life. Sandra Lee did. She was born in 1970 into a household where medicine wasn't just a career, it was the language the family spoke. Her father was a practicing dermatologist. And instead of finding his world intimidating or clinical or strange, young Sandra found it fascinating. She watched him. She listened. She absorbed the way a small procedure, something most people would dismiss as minor, could completely change how a patient felt about walking out the door. That early observation planted something in her that never left. The understanding that skin isn't just the surface of a person. It is how they present themselves to the world. How they feel in a room. Whether they make eye contact or look away, whether they raise their hand or sit quietly in the back. She learned that from her father before she ever set foot in a medical school. She shadowed him as a teenager. She studied with extraordinary focus. She pursued academic excellence not for the recognition, but because the patients at the end of the road deserved a doctor who was prepared. By the time she was old enough to apply to medical school, her path was already clear. She wasn't choosing dermatology. She had always been headed there. The foundation her father built, compassion first, precision always, would define every patient she ever treated. And eventually, millions of viewers who had never once visited her clinic. But the most important thing that medical school gave her had nothing to do with dermatology at all. It gave her the person she would build her entire life with. And it happened on the very first day. Sandra Lee arrived at Hahnemann University in Philadelphia for medical school orientation in the early 1990s. She was focused, prepared, and ready to begin the most demanding chapter of her education. And then she met Jeffrey Rebish. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie moment. It was two people in the same room, on the same first day, discovering that they were walking toward exactly the same destination. Both interested in dermatology. Both driven by the same combination of precision and patient-centered care. Both carrying the same understanding that medicine was not just a profession but a responsibility. How rare is it to find someone who shares your exact dream on the very first day you go looking for it? Because that is what happened to Sandra Lee. And she was smart enough to recognize it. Throughout medical school they supported each other through the relentless demands of clinical training. The long hours. The emotional weight of watching people suffer. The pressure of examinations that determined futures. They held each other steady when the work threatened to overwhelm. And as the years passed, what had started as a shared academic purpose deepened into something much more permanent. They married in 2000. And then they built something together that neither of them could have created alone. They moved to Upland, California and established a joint dermatology practice that quickly earned a loyal patient base. Their clinic became known for clinical excellence and for something harder to define, a warmth, an accessibility, a sense that the people walking through the door were seen as human beings first and patients second. They welcomed 2 sons. They raised a family while running a clinic. They built a life that looked, from the outside, like everything working exactly as it should. And then a television producer came calling. And everything Sandra Lee had built quietly in Upland, California was about to reach the entire world. In 2018, TLC premiered Dr Pimple Popper. And within weeks, it was everywhere. The show seemed simple on the surface. A dermatologist performing procedures. Cysts removed. Lipomas extracted. Conditions treated that patients had often carried in silence for years, sometimes decades, because they didn't know help existed, or because shame had kept them from asking. And Sandra Lee walked into every single one of those rooms with the same calm, warm, completely unshockable presence that made people feel safe enough to finally let someone help them. Viewers were not just watching procedures. They were watching transformation. Not the dramatic kind that happens in an operating theater with a team of surgeons. The quiet kind. The kind that happens when a person who has hidden a part of themselves for 10 years walks out of a clinic room standing a little straighter than when they walked in. That was what Sandra Lee understood that most television producers didn't, and what made the show impossible to stop watching. She never let the cameras make her forget the patients. Every episode was someone's real life. She treated it that way every single time. The show expanded. Multiple seasons. Spin-offs. A global audience across dozens of countries. She became a household name while continuing to see patients at her private practice in Upland. Filming schedules around clinical obligations. Television commitments around family life. The dual existence of doctor and celebrity was managed with a discipline that looked, to the outside world, almost effortless. It was anything but. And beneath the surface of that seemingly seamless life, something was building quietly that nobody around her had fully noticed. Not even her. High blood pressure. Elevated cholesterol. Both present. Both documented. Both significant risk factors for exactly the kind of medical emergency that was coming. But the pace of Sandra Lee's life had made consistent personal health monitoring nearly impossible. Long filming days that stretched into evenings. Clinical obligations that didn't pause because a camera crew needed her somewhere else. A household to manage. A business to run. 2 sons to raise. Every hour of every day was accounted for, and none of those hours were set aside for her. As her children got older and began leaving for college, there was hope that the pace might finally ease. That the relentless scheduling might soften into something more sustainable. That she might find the space to turn the same careful attention she gave her patients onto herself. Instead, production demands for a new series intensified. The window closed before it fully opened. She spent every working day helping people notice things about their bodies they had ignored for too long. Encouraging patients to come in earlier. To not wait. To not dismiss the signs their bodies were sending. And the one body she could not see clearly enough, the one she lived in, was sending signs she wasn't reading. The combination of unresolved risk factors and sustained high-level stress created an environment where a sudden medical crisis was no longer a possibility but a probability. And the moment it arrived without warning, on a completely ordinary November afternoon, in the middle of a filming day that had started like every other. But this one would not end like every other. November 2025. Sandra Lee was on set filming her new series, Everything Changed in an Instant. The title, it would later seem, was describing her own life. It started subtly. Slurred speech. A slight heaviness on one side of her body. The kind of symptoms that arrive gently enough that a busy person can almost convince themselves they are stress, or fatigue, or simply the accumulated weight of a long day on set. She tried to rationalize it. She was tired. She was overworked. She needed water. She needed a break. But Sandra Lee had spent decades as a trained physician. And somewhere beneath the hope that she was wrong, she knew exactly what was happening. The symptoms were textbook. She had learned them in medical school. She had discussed them with patients. She had urged people to act immediately when they felt exactly what she was feeling right now. Can you imagine being a doctor and watching yourself have a stroke, knowing precisely what is happening inside your own body and being completely unable to stop it? Knowing the clinical reality of the moment while simultaneously being the patient inside it? Because that is what Sandra Lee experienced in those minutes on set. Knowledge and helplessness arriving at exactly the same time. Colleagues noticed. They acted. She was transported to hospital immediately and imaging confirmed what she had already suspected. An ischemic stroke. A blocked blood vessel in the brain. Permanent tissue damage already done. Production halted. A filming day that had started with a crew and a schedule and a plan became a medical emergency that changed the trajectory of everything she had built. The woman who had spent years calmly explaining medical procedures to cameras was now lying in a hospital bed, working to speak clearly, working to move normally, confronting the terrifying gap between what her mind remembered how to do and what her body could currently manage. The knowledge didn't make it easier, it made it harder. The acute phase passed. The rehabilitation began. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, medication to thin the blood and reduce the risk of recurrence. Lifestyle changes that should have been made years earlier, now non-negotiable. The full architecture of recovery, built carefully and consistently, one session at a time. What made it possible, more than the therapy, more than the medication, more than the medical team, was her family. Jeffrey, her sons. The people who had been present through every chapter of her life. They held the space around her recovery with the same quiet steadiness they had always brought to everything. She had spent 25 years building a life with a man who understood medicine, understood pressure, and understood her. And in the most frightening chapter of her life, he was exactly who she needed him to be. Recovery was not linear. There were setbacks. Occasional speech difficulty under stress. Changes in physical endurance that reminded her, on certain days, that something had shifted permanently. The Sandra Lee who walked back onto a filming set in early 2026 was not identical to the one who had left it in November. She was different. She knew things she hadn't known before. About her body. About her limits. About the cost of ignoring both for too long. She came back. Not because the schedule demanded it. Not because the network was waiting. But because healing people was never just her job. It was the core of who she was, built in a dermatologist's office in childhood, refined in a medical school in Philadelphia, practiced in a clinic in California for 2 decades, and shared with millions of viewers who had come to trust her completely. She came back because she wasn't finished. Sandra Lee's stroke did something that 7 seasons of television never quite managed. It made the world see her fully, not as Dr. Pimple Popper. Not as a television personality or a dermatology celebrity or a woman who made complicated procedures look effortless on camera. But as a human being, with risk factors and blind spots and a body that didn't care how many patients she had helped or how many episodes she had filmed or how carefully she had balanced every other obligation in her life. The lesson she carried out of that hospital was the same one she had been teaching her patients for 30 years. Pay attention. Don't wait. Don't convince yourself that the signs your body is sending are stress or fatigue or something you can push through with enough willpower. The body always tells the truth. The question is whether we are willing to listen before it forces us to. Sandra Lee is still here, still practicing, still filming, still walking into rooms where people have been carrying something painful and hidden for far too long, and helping them set it down. But she does it now with something she didn't have before. A personal understanding of exactly how quickly everything can change, and a commitment to making sure the people who watch her, millions of them, all over the world, understand that too. Success is not defined solely by achievement. It is defined by the ability to adapt, recover, and continue forward with greater awareness of what actually matters. Sandra Lee learned that at 55. And she is using every day she has left to make sure nobody who follows her story has to learn it the hard way. Which part of Sandra's story hit you hardest? Drop it in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story moved you, make sure you check out our video on how every famous CEO died. Because those stories carry the same weight as everything you just heard.